Welcome back, and please remember to be part of the show by engaging us on social media. The hashtag is the Modise Network. South Africa will be going back to the polls in a few months' time to elect the 6th Democratic Parliament and provincial legislatures. The African National Congress has dominated the national politics, with the Democratic Alliance having provincial influence in the Western Cape. Events currently in the public domain are dominated by reports of staggering corruption that has spread throughout the body politic of our country. Some voters are jaded. The much more younger ones are agitated, whilst the economy has stagnated. Some influential South Africans are calling for more accountability to be extended to the voters through a modified electoral voting system, which allows for a partial constituency system. With revelations that the Zondo Commission of top politicians receiving fake watches to facilitate corruption, Dr. Brigalia, author of the book Democracy, More Than Just Elections, joins us to discuss her ideas of how we can beef up the checks and balances and how we as citizens begin to engage with the responsibilities of our vote. Dr. Brigalia, a pleasure to have you with us on the show, and welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted, Tim, to have an interview with you. It reminds me of the good old days. You know, the old days are always good, but I've seen you grow as an amazing leader and citizen of this country, Tim.
And I appreciate...
You are my pride also.
Well, and a product as well. So, so as long as I'm sticking within all the values that you, as one of our elders, taught us, and that is why I have you on the show, and I'll welcome your comment, Dr. When you look at what is going on in the country at the moment, the big political stories of our day, what do you think is happening within our democracy currently?
You know, Tim, I think I want to say we are probably going through what I prefer to call a second phase, Tim, you know, and so I'm not prepared to feel too despair, because I think that there is a whole generation in this country of young people who are growing up in this environment, who are looking very seriously for a new kind of society, let alone a society that is a wonderful constitution, a society that holds elections after every 5 years, which is wonderful, a society that has got wonderful institutions that are all functioning as well as they could, which I think is wonderful. But I think this is another phase of looking for a society of a kind of citizen who is very caring, a citizen who is committed to be accountable to somebody, whether accountable at your own home, accountable as a teacher, accountable as a politician. And I just think we are in a different kind of phases. And what seemed to be the greatest challenge for us is how do we keep the hope of the young people, and so they don't fall into becoming very cynical and angry and you know, giving up hope. Because what sustained us, Tim, and many people even before my own time, was the hope that one day we will be a great nation, and that one day we will be free people, and that helped people to continue to struggle, to continue to survive, to continue to send their children to school, to continue to create families, and to create, you know, ethics, morality, and values. Because there was something that our parents and many more others had to look up to and do. It was a preparation of a better society for a free people. And I think for me, as I see it now, since I belong to yet another generation, is how do we sustain that hope, vision, enthusiasm with this generation?
Well, you have been involved in the public life of South Africa for a long time, pre-1994, being very much involved in voter education. and also in various advisory capacities in the drafting of the Constitution. Do you think that the process that led to the democratic South Africa, I'm talking about the negotiations, for instance, the system that we chose, as well as the public education that went with it at that time, served its purpose of preparing us, South Africa, for a democratic order and the way government functions in this country?
Definitely it did, Tim. At that time, that is what we could do to the best of our ability. At that time, that is what we could do because of our history that we were given of a fragmented nation. We didn't know each other. Some belonged to South Africa, the others were there by chance. Many of us were not even ever recognized as full human beings who can vote. And so that was a system for us that really worked very, very well, because it was a system that would give a number of us from different situations where we were coming from. I'm talking about, in this case, political parties. That's what I'm talking about. The political parties in South Africa were all like everything else divided, and we had liberation movements on our side. And so that was the best we had at that time. We didn't know each other. We didn't have an experience. Yes, we had expectations of democracy. We were excited about the Constitution, but we didn't have the experience or the implementation. Now that we know, it is clear to us that we need then to sit again, this time as South Africans, and say, with our experience of these years and with what is happening in the country, with unhappiness in the country, because people tell us that we are one of the countries in the world that has got the highest number of protests. Now, whether that is true or not, that's not the issue. The fact is that we do have a number of protests. What we need now is a group of us South Africans to evaluate and be able to create what we think would suit us as South Africans. Of course, we will have to abide by all the global standards in the world of elections. We will always have political parties, that they're an important base. But even political parties might find themselves, as they do in other countries, that they have to set a criteria for the kind of people they propose who become the candidates. And that criteria is not something that is a secret for a party. It has to be known, it has to be transparent, that this person whom the party has chosen has this kind of experience, this kind of education, this kind of commitment. And so it's not something that, and so we need to look at our situation, because unfortunately we are still operating in some ways in a separate environment, which is beyond our, we still live in different areas of this country. We still have to struggle with those things. The old hasn't changed. There are still suburbs that are still referred to this day as white suburbs, because it just so happened that the majority of the people who still live there, so we have those, the townships still belong to black people, all villages belong to black people. So we can't take a system now that is not seriously looking at what we are still today. Unfortunately, even where we live, Tim, our situations are not the same. But the needs, but now, even the needs of the people are not the same.
Sure. Now, Dr. Brigalia, where would you place responsibility for this current situation 25 years after the 1994 elections? Because many young South Africans, when they are frustrated, they cannot find jobs, and they look at the environment that you've just described, they tend to blame the old guard, if I may call them that, which would include you, to the extent that some think of yes, Madiba as a sellout. They say the situation is the way it is now because Nelson Mandela sold out during the negotiations, and they just make that easy connection or conclusion, a simple conclusion to that effect. But it is much more than that. What is your view about that?
My view, Tim, is it seems a very simplistic one, because many of us, especially those of my generation, are coming from a tradition of non-governmental organizations. Some are coming from the liberation movement traditions. The others are coming from church groups. And so we have carried all those institutions, even if they are not existing like the liberation movements. But a number of people in leadership, particularly of the political parties, of the ruling party, were leaders who were coming from that kind of grooming. What we need now, Tim, because we are in difficulties, is to be able to revise, not simple to revise only the laws. They have to be revised. Some of them really have to be revised. And relook after this experience, what is it that we didn't get right? I really wish there was a process in the whole Constitution that talks of a period of evaluation. I wish we could have a system that says every nation, after 5 years before they go into elections, they should do an evaluation system, whether we proceed as usual, and it is business as usual, especially for those of us who are young democracies. How I wish we could do that, even now for us in South Africa, that before we go to these elections, we find a way. We just sit and listen to manifestos, all right. How is this party going to do this? We don't know. As a public, we're just listening. We don't have possibilities of engaging with political parties because we have followed systems that don't have provisions where, in fact, the civil society, young people engage with political parties, where we begin to engage now, because we rely on individuals now who really are to carry this nation. To who are these individuals? The thing that makes me very nervous now is that I begin to think, I wonder what kind of skills, I wonder what kind of experience the parties are looking for. I wonder what kind of people, I wonder if these people are going to be, at least this time, respectful and be accountable to communities rather than only to be accountable to a party.
Well,
these are some of the anxieties
that you have currently, and I'd like us to pick up the conversation on that. You're talking about the caliber of the public representatives that we elect, and I'll also be exploring your ideas on how we need to modify the system, if that would help to strengthen our democracy and make sure that it delivers the economic dividend that has been expected for so many years. Dr. Brigalia Bam is my guest, and you too can engage us on social media using the hashtag the Modise Network. We will be back with you in a moment.